Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening. We have both Select Board and County tonight, but I'm just going to note that we'll be taking County up after Select Board. And I don't believe that there are any changes to the agenda, so we'll accept that as written and move to announcements.
This meeting is being video and audio recorded. There's no Select Board meeting next Wednesday, September 24th. The next board meeting is Wednesday, October 1st at this time. The Select Board, Planning Board, Affordable Housing Trust, and Board of Health are having a joint meeting on housing next Tuesday, September 30th, from 4 to 6 at the meeting trailer at 131 Pleasant Street. And I think that's it for town announcements.
There's 2 attendees in the waiting room that need to be let in. Next up, we do have some responses to public comments. It's fairly lengthy. We'll go through it. I will note that one of these responses was actually for county, but because we don't have that on the county agenda, I'll do all of the responses together. On September 10th, Leah Mosier, regarding the deer population on Nantucket, I urge the Select Board to take immediate action before this problem gets worse than it already is. The town's response: the Select Board does not have the authority to take action regarding the deer population. Deer management is regulated by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Massachusetts Division of Fish and Wildlife deer and moose biologists presented information on measures the state is implementing specific to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, also at the September 10th Select Board meeting. Megan Perry had a demonstration on August 20th at the county meeting, and it said, I don't know if I missed it, but I asked quite a few questions at the public comment section 3 weeks ago regarding our aquifer and PFAS and drilling wells. I didn't see any of those questions answered. I figured I'd highlight that. So this was from last week's meeting. In regard to Ms. Perry's demonstration, how do we know there is an impermeable surface? Town response: it is not fully impermeable at a depth of 80 feet, but rather semi-confining. We know this because water department staff placed transducers above and below this layer during pump tests. The results showed limited communication between the zones, meaning water does pass through, but at a slower rate. The true impermeable layer is deeper, below approximately 250 feet, and there is a thick clay layer. If it is impermeable, how does it recharge? Town response: since the layer at 80 feet is only semi-confining, recharge does occur, though more slowly. Water can move through this unit, but the reduced permeability acts as a natural control on flow. What replaces the water we draw out? Town response: recharge into the middle aquifer happens gradually through the semi-confining unit. Right now, this layer is also functioning as a protective barrier. Is there any way to bring back a website that is, this is a separate question. Is there any way to bring back a website that is more user-friendly? Town response: some people using the agendas and minutes portal, which is a feature on the town website, seem to have varying degrees of comfort with it. Documented complaints are very few given the number of users. The town's chief technology officer, Mike Alvarez, has addressed concerns regarding the agenda and minutes portal several times, including during a presentation to the Select Board at the August 6, 2025 meeting, and in response to other public comment questions. See here, July 23rd, 2025. Then another question: I have a FOIA request that has been sitting out for over a year. I have appealed to the state. The state requested that the town provide the documents. We go back and forth, back and forth. I was hoping the Select Board could get that information to me and resolve this a little bit sooner. Town's response. Ms. Perry submitted a public records request on March 21st, 2025 for communications between all representatives of Nantucket and Nantucket Crossing. Does that mean Surfside Crossing? When asked for clarification regarding the specific names to be included, Ms. Perry responded 1 week later with a revised request seeking all select board members, all Affordable Housing Trust members, all NP and EDC members, the planning director, assistant director, the town manager, assistant town managers, the finance director, and Billy Cassidy. A list of 28 names was then compiled and provided to IT for searches. Some names produced a large volume of records while others produced none. The results were subsequently reviewed and categorized as confidential, non-responsive, or responsive. The search did not yield communications between Town of Nantucket staff and Surfside Crossing representatives, except for one voicemail record from Surfside Crossing to town staff, which was the only responsive record and has been provided to Ms. Perry. We believe the request has been fulfilled and have not heard back. Then one more, I'm confused about the removal of the food pantry and the proposal to pitch another nonprofit. Town response. For more information on this matter, please visit our For the Record page. Okay, so that's online. Next up, we had Rebecca Duhame at last week's meeting. In response to a June 4 public question, the select board indicated that on September 1, 2025, emails would be sent to registered STR operators requesting permit renewals for 2026. The emails have not gone out yet. Town response. There was a 1-week delay in updating the GovOS system to enable current short-term rental registrants to renew. As a result, the first reminder emails went out from the town on September 12th, 2025. Any additional reminders leading up to the October 31st deadline will be sent by the town or directly from the GovOS system. Next question from Rebecca. It'd be beneficial for the town to publicly announce the start of the 2026 STR permit renewal application and renewal, and remind operators that the registration deadline is November 1. Would the town please consider doing so through island media such as The Current and Enquirer and Mirror? Town response. Because a small number of short-term rental property owners reside on Nantucket, local paid advertising may have limited reach. To share information broadly, on Friday, September 12, 2025, the town, 1, sent out an email to the short-term rental email list, 2, posted this information on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, and sent out a news flash, 3, posted the information on its main homepage on the short-term rental webpage, 4, emailed the local press and other stakeholders. The website, social media are the primary sources of information for all Town of Nantucket matters. Next, on August 21, 2025, the public health director mentioned that some applications for STR permits have been rejected. Would the town advise the number of applications granted since the inception of the program in 2024? Town response, 1,354 as of September 12, 2025. The number that has been rejected to date. Town response, that number is not tracked. An evaluation of each registration request sometimes involves reaching out to applicants that might be lacking information before they can be approved. For example, a property owner might upload a document that does not define liability coverage. That application would initially be denied but then approved after the appropriate documentation is uploaded or questions answered. The reason applications have been rejected, town response. The most common reason are inappropriate insurance documentation and applications that are started but not finished. To what extent have applications been rejected because of invalid classes of owners, such as real estate investment trust? Town response. This occurs but is not a common reason for rejection. Okay, next up was Emma Kilvert. This was a letter. Dear members of the select board, As you will have read, Nantucket Neighborhoods First has asked NAREB and the members of Nantucket's real estate community to contribute to addressing Nantucket's STR challenges by limiting STR properties featured on their websites to those with Nantucket short-term rental registration numbers. This is only a partial solution because it does not include the platforms and other ways people advertise STRs, like vacation clubs. Accordingly, we would like to request that you and the town take the appropriate steps to notify the administrators of these entities of our recently effective laws under Chapter 123, which requires property registration to STR, and Chapter 338, which prohibits the advertisement of property listings to STR and that do not have the required Nantucket registration number. And two, ask for their assistance with compliance with Nantucket's rules and regulations in the same way that we have asked the Nantucket real estate community to be part of the STR solution. Our understanding of the platforms is that they do not make an effort to work constructively with municipalities. But in our conversations with the two largest platforms, we have been advised that they have received no notice of Nantucket's rules that are now in effect. If we as a community and you as the elected members of the select board, along with the real estate community, can take positive steps toward enforcing our existing STR laws, rules, and regulations, a zoning solution will be easier to accomplish. We thank you for your consideration and look forward to your reply. Regards, Emmy Kilbert on behalf of Nantucket Neighborhoods First. Town response. The town does not have a standardized process for notifying the community of recently enacted laws, other than the town meeting and regular statutory notification requirements. It is incumbent on those to whom laws apply to familiarize themselves with these laws and ensure compliance. In some instances, if compliance is needed for the community as a whole, i.e. plastics ban, specific outreach will be undertaken. In this instance, town administration will work with town council and the public health director to determine an appropriate communication to the parties specified in Ms. Kilbert's email. And there's a YouTube link.
And I think also in regards to that, Tom, you're on the Board of Health, right?
Yes.
I think there is some plan to reach out to Airbnb, et cetera. Wasn't that discussed at the last meeting?
Yes, it was, and
Yeah.
and I think it's pending.
Yeah, okay. So something is happening?
Yes.
Okay.
And I should just note that we have one select board member online this evening, so we'll be taking all votes. Roll call. Malcolm McNabb is present online. Brooke Moore is not present this evening. Now we have public comment for items otherwise not on our select board agenda for discussion. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Mary Longacre.
Good evening. I'm Mary Longacre, President of the Nantucket Town Association. And Erica, I hope, is able to bring, yes, thank you, Erica. So the map you see on the screen, which is a little bit out of date, shows which areas of the island are covered by neighborhood civic associations. The Nantucket Town Association represents the area roughly within a 1.5-mile radius from the Pacific National Bank at the top of Main Street, excepting those areas with their own neighborhood associations, such as Brant Point, Monomoy, Nassaquisset, and a few other neighborhoods. When the Nantucket Town Association was formed as part of the 1974 reorganization of the Nantucket Civic League, it was also given a second membership category. Regardless of whether they live in town, any person who resides either seasonally or year-round on Nantucket who does not live in an area covered by another neighborhood association is eligible to join the town association. On the map you see on the screen, anyone living in an area that is colored beige or brown, beige maybe lightish color there, and then brown in the center towards town, would be eligible to join. There are approximately 24 area associations now, shown in the other colors on the map, and anyone living in those areas would be encouraged to join their respective civic association. Our purpose is to encourage participation in civic affairs, to promote through charitable and educational means the preservation of the historic and natural environment of the town of Nantucket, and to promote the improvement of the quality of living and the general welfare of both residents and visitors. When it was first formed, the Town Association had almost 400 members. For the last few years, our membership has been about 50 people. We are launching a membership drive to ensure the continued vitality of the organization and that we fully represent the community. Year-round residents, seasonal residents, and businesses are welcome to join and participate. The Town Association meets monthly, year-round, on the fourth Tuesday of the month, with both in-person and Zoom attendance options. We usually have a guest speaker from a local organization or town department. Meetings are open to the public and video recordings are available. On our website, nantuckettownassociation.org, you can get information about how to join and what our past projects have been. You can also reach us at P.O. Box 181 in town or by emailing nantuckettownassociation@gmail.com. For anybody interested, I do have a couple printed copies of the map and a list of all of the area associations. Those are out in the lobby. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Veronica Bonet.
Hi, my name is Veronica Bonet. I have been trying to understand how we got to a point that there are approximately 50 completed turbines, 150 blades at the Vineyard Wind site, and more going up every day, and yet there is still no pollution plan in place for the likely event of another blade failure. In fact, the town and its historic preservation attorneys expressed no objections when the revised COP for the project was secretly reviewed and then approved back in January. In reviewing the extensive communications between Seong Kim at BSCE and Brooke Moore since the blade failure, what stands out to me is that Seong Kim's role was to appease Nantucket through Ms. Moore. She had no authority for enforcement. What do the town's environmental lawyers have to say about the lack of federal oversight for the Vineyard Wind project? CHP are not environmental lawyers, they're historic preservation lawyers. We have only hired attorneys to work on our National Historic Landmark status, but so much more is harming Nantucket. And in fact, their specialty in this place doesn't seem to be protecting our NHL since there are no restrictions on heights of turbines or the quantity of turbines. Of course, Nantucket not having environmental representation has benefited the Healy administration and Vineyard Wind. I have seen no evidence that anyone in the Healy administration has gone to bat for Nantucket on this. Anyone looking out for Nantucket should have been screaming back in January when the revised COP was reviewed in secret and then approved by BOEM without an emergency response plans for blade failures, among other deficiencies. Public statements by Brooke Moore on several occasions that the town would like to see the offshore wind projects built. However, regardless of personal feelings about offshore wind, the select board's role in all of this should be to advocate for and make sure Nantucket's seat at the table leads to proper protections. That has not happened. The communication I have reviewed gives the appearance that Ms. Moore is playing middleman, trying to appease the Nantucket community, while BOEM and Vineyard Wind ignore federal environmental rules, laws, and enforcement procedures. Ms. Moore received notification from Seong Kim on December 30th that Vineyard Wind had received approval for commercial power production at one turbine. There was clearly a financial or tax credit reason for this power needing to be live in 2024. Although the company was required to explain post-approval why the 10-day commissioning process for one turbine took place over just 5 hours. That explanation was never made public. Did Ms. Moore ever get an explanation for that? Let's hope there is not a blade failure at AT39. Ms. Moore's response to Seong Kim was, as expected. How did she know about this? What did the town and CHP do to demand the enforcement of the agreement that said no commercial production was allowed without ADLS? Did the town or CHP reach out to Maura Healy's office, the State Preservation Office, or the press? Regarding ADLS, the lights are still blinking on all towers for hours at a time. There is no supplier mentioned as having received approval for an ADLS system. There is no documentation from the FDA that the system is effective on and approved for the GE turbines. It appears that Klaus Mueller.
Veronica, you're past 3 minutes.
I'm happy to stop, but I think that this information is important, and you guys never respond. You never say thank you. You never ask a question. If I email this to you, I won't know if you got it. I have thousands of pages from the federal government, and if you don't want to hear this extra 45 seconds, that is really concerning, considering you have a meeting with Vineyard Wind on Saturday. I'm shocked that you would cut me off.
I,
It's bad government.
I'm just trying to be,
It's short. Do you want me to finish?
trying to be consistent.
It's short and it's important.
Go ahead.
It appears that Klaus Mueller has lied to Ms. Moore in person at town meetings, in emails, when she spoke with him at a restaurant in Boston, yet she continued to relay his message that ADLS is imminent, in spite of there being absolutely no evidence this is the case. I can name 6 occasions where Ms. Moore told the Nantucket community that ADLS was coming, including in August, when the community was informed that it actually is up and running. It is not up and running. There is no available communication between Ms. Moore and the FAA, BOEM, BSEE, the State Environmental Energy Affairs Office, Julian Sire, Thomas Smokley, or any employee of Vineyard Wind to the contrary. If I am wrong about this, please share what is available. The Good Neighbor Agreement made us walk away from the federal process. When the town of Nantucket absolved Vineyard Wind from any further liability related to the blade failure, it lost any remaining leverage to push the company to comply with basic safety preparations. There should be no further negotiations with Vineyard Wind until an enforcement mechanism is in place. Thank you, and I do really appreciate you
Thank
letting
you.
me finish. Thank you very much.
Please email all those comments. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under public comment? Campbell Sutton?
Hi, Campbell Sutton. So I'm not quite sure how to follow up with that, but anyway, I just had a couple of questions, I think. One, regarding the smart meters that are being replaced on houses, right? National Grid was here a bit ago and gave a presentation on it and everything. So I've looked into it a little bit. But what I was wondering is, if you opt out of the smart meter, right, are you no longer eligible to be part of the sort of like electric co-op that the town has? Do you know what I mean? And then my other question is just like, how individually hackable are these smart meters? I sort of like my meter that is mine. But, so that was my question on that. The other one, I've sort of been thinking about it as summer has gone on. I know there were the sewer rate increases, right? And so, not that I'm aware a ton, but, so it's by volume, cubic, something or others. So, like, if I had a house that had irrigation, I could get one of those meters put in that would separate the water use that was going to irrigation or plants or my pool or what have you, right? But I don't have irrigation, so I don't have that ability. So I'm sort of wondering is, as sewer commissioners, would you possibly in the future consider looking at summer water usage, like, just sort of a little bit of a deduction for, watering your vegetable garden or outdoor showers? Because it's at this rate, you start going, well, can I really even afford to grow vegetables myself? Or do I just have to get them at the grocery? Because, there's no way to deduct water that's used for the gardening. Anyway, so that was sort of my question on that. And I think it's probably a county thing, but my other quick comment is I do appreciate the new drainage systems for the road on Raceway Drive. That's really been lovely. That was quite a messy lake right there. So whoever gets thanks.
Thank you.
One more quick one, just to follow up on the IT piece. I tried using the website on my iPhone at the library last week, and it was a complete fail for trying to find things. So I think it's lovely that he's put together a new thing. You've got directions for everyone that's got a PC, but everyone that doesn't use PC, and isn't willing to go out and buy one, we're all restricted in our ability to efficiently use the website. So it's just a quick comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll respond to those comments. Amy
Amy
Eldridge.
Eldridge. Just a couple quick comments. We are a few months into the new intersection at Milestone and Pulpus, and it is terrible. And I have watched some shenanigans go on there. I have a dash cam just for that intersection because I knew it's going to be wild and crazy. People are going through the stop sign and not stopping. I watched 7 cars just because it's insane. I'd like to see if the police department or the Mass State Police could sit at those sections every once in a while and start catching some of these people that aren't stopping at the stop sign. It's not a matter of if there's going to be a horrendous accident there. It's when. It's scary. I understand it was supposed to better the situation, but I don't really think it does. And I drive the road 4 or 5 times a day on the weekends, even more. I pet sit, so I'm on the road a lot on the weekends and in the evenings, and it is scary. I'm not sure if you're aware, Island Lumber just redid their whole entrance to their parking lot because the 18-wheelers can't get in there to deliver. They can't make the corners, and it seems like Mass DOT didn't really care to talk to truck drivers about how that was going to impact them. But that intersection is horrendous, and it really should go back to the way it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Okay, seeing none. There's no new business. Approval of minutes, warrants. There aren't any pending contracts tonight.
Yep, so moved?
1 through 3.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call? Matt Fee?
Aye.
Tom Dixon?
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb? Oh, I saw you say aye, but I actually can't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you. Don Hill, aye. That carries unanimously. Then we will move to citizen departmental committee requests and reports. We have number 1, Nantucket Preservation Trust, request for approval of the historic preservation restriction on 1 through 3 Vestal Street.
I'll go ahead and review this for you.
Yes, please.
So previously, you had done a preliminary review of this historic preservation restriction and had voted to send it to town council for a report. That report has been issued, and all is in order. So the recommendation would be to approve the historic preservation restriction for 1 through 3 Vestal Street and find it in the public interest.
I'll make a motion to approve and find it in the public interest.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee?
Aye.
Tom Dixon?
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb?
Aye.
Don Hill, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone who worked on that. Number 2, Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee Quarterly Report. Leah Hill?
Thank you. All right, so while Erica brings that up, this is the quarterly report from the first and second quarter, so January to June 2025. And since it's the end of the third quarter, I'll be back probably shortly to give you what the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee has been up to. Next slide, Erica. So before I jump into what the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee has been up to, just want to give a brief update about the Francis Street Beach Improvement Project. So we had 2 community open houses for that. One was in person, one was virtual. Over 100 participants at both of them, and they gave input and rated the 2 design options that we have. So on the top are the 2 design options. The first is called Dune Swoop, so that's more sort of curvilinear, and the second is called the Beach Overlook. That's more rectilinear, more like kind of the wharfs and stuff like that. Both of them function the same, so it's really just aesthetically what the work group will be choosing either at the next meeting or the previous. So we hired a new waterfront structural engineer, that's PAR, and we are updating coastal storm modeling and a couple other things to help inform the design choices that the work group will choose. Next. So highlights from the quarter kind of goes into 3 buckets. The first was lots of projects that the town is moving forward with at various stages to protect our vital infrastructure from climate change. There were a lot of presentations from outside communities that came to give presentations regarding different coastal resilience projects as well. And then a lot of meetings where there was a lot of discussion and generated ideas for different funding options for coastal resilience construction in the future. Next slide. So for that funding mechanism, again, bunch of meetings discussing it. A letter was finalized on April 8th, and it was sent to you all. And we also had Libby and Brian come to a meeting as well to discuss the different mechanisms that the committee came up with. What came out of that is that at this coming town meeting, we may be able to amend the revolving fund to incorporate coastal resiliency within that, if there is sort of extra funding after funding for lifeguards and piping plovers and all of that. Next slide. There was an overall downtown neighborhood flood barrier presentation. So this is really 2 recommendations within the coastal resilience plan, all high priority. And the ideas from Children's Beach down to Washington Street is, the concept is to either elevate roads, bulkheads, or nature-based solutions like dune restoration to be able to protect our downtown from flooding today and in the future. And it's definitely going to take public and private coordination as, there's a lot of private properties that are waterfront. Next slide. We had a discussion with private property owners, and a couple from the Brant Point Association came and gave us their information as far as like the processes that they had to go through to elevate their homes. And CRAC will be doing potentially quarterly meetings that are just dedicated for the downtown neighborhood flood barrier for those private property owners to come to that meeting to have discussions about what they're planning to do on their property or what they have already done on their property to make it more resilient, and how can that be tied into the different projects that the town is pursuing as well. Next slide. We had Chuck Larson come, and he has been going through a lot of the NOAA tide gauge data that we have, which is down at the Steamship Authority. We've had it since 1965, so we're quite lucky for that. Some key takeaways were that high tide flooding is already happening, as we all know, and it will become more frequent as sea level rises as well. Saltwater intrusion will also increase, and soil saturation will increase, reducing the ability for water to be absorbed. So if the ground is already saturated and we have coastal flooding as well, there's not really any way for that water to go down to groundwater. Next slide. I gave a presentation about the Easy Street Flood Mitigation Project and where that's at. And so right now we have 3 different concept design options. There's the bulkhead expansion and elevation. There is the adaptable road raising to 6.5 feet NAVD 88. Again, that is not 6.5 feet from the existing grade. And then there's a road raising to 8 feet NAVD 88. Again, not 8 feet from existing grade. So the committee discussed these 3 options, asked a bunch of questions, and the CZM grant was completed in June, and the final report is available on the project website. If you go to that QR code, you'll have all the deliverables there. We did get funding approved at town meeting to move from these concept ideas to full design and permitting. And so I'm working on finalizing that scope right now, which incorporates a lot. So it will answer all of those questions that you all had when we presented this back in the spring. It will answer questions that abutters have had, that the community has raised as well. So there's additional modeling. There is updated guidelines for historic structures in the area, a huge stormwater component as well. And so there'll be field investigations too to inform the design options. So when we get more information about all of that, we'll do another presentation to the select board to be able to answer those questions and see if there's any other information that you all need before you choose which design to move forward with. Next slide. We had a great presentation by Catherine McCandless, who is out of Boston, and she's the resilience planner there. It's called Resilient Bennington Street in Fredericks Park. And so this is an area that is East Boston and Revere, lots of stakeholders. I think that we have a lot of stakeholders here. This project has a ton of stakeholders because it's city, it's Mass DOT, it's private property, the whole gamut. So that area floods consistently. There is a train station there as well. There's a marsh there. There's a VFW, there's a school. So their goal is to really reduce that flooding impact from sea level rise and coastal storms out to 2070. Next slide. So there's kind of three different components of this project, and I just put up what the preferred designs are for each of them. So for the roadway, they are looking to elevate the roadway with a shared path. So I know one of your questions was, are there any other areas within Massachusetts that are elevating roadways? So this is one example. For the area that it has a parking lot and the school, they are looking to create a living levee or a berm that helps with parking compensation as well. And then down by the marsh, they are looking at it actually elevating that whole park, raising it higher, and then with a gradual slope down to the marsh. Next slide. We had Jeff Carlson, the director of the Natural Resources, come and before town meeting to talk about the capital appropriations that NRD put in. So I'm not going to read them all, but they're on the screen. But we just want to thank the voters for approving over $11 million in natural resources projects that are already being implemented. So thank you. Next slide. The committee had a lot of meetings about the Nantucket Harbor and Nantucket Harbor Action Plan update. And there's a whole section about coastal resiliency now within that plan, which is great. So they gave a lot of input into that. And the draft, I think the draft is still out for public comment, but don't hold me to that. Next slide. There were a lot of discussions about how to incorporate coastal resiliency into planning board regulations and zoning. This is a high priority within the coastal resilience plan. And so CRAC came up with a list of suggestions to include to try to update zoning or improve zoning with coastal resiliency in mind. And we started an internal work group as well. So it has a coastal resilience advisory committee member, it's a planning board member, and then the relevant town staff. So the town will have to pass the 2020 mandatory floodplain update. So that is what we are hoping to do in the near future because we have to do that. And then there are also optional floodplain updates. It's called a model resilience bylaw that really incorporates coastal resiliency into zoning as well. So that's kind of an a la carte, and that's what the internal work group will be working on to see what pieces of that can we insert into zoning. And of course, everything needs to get passed at town meeting as well before anything can be implemented. Next. I give a presentation on the cliff stabilizers. So we have a pilot project going on right now in Dionis and Nantucket Beach, and the devices are on the right. They look like these green kind of honeycomb structures, and so they have a screw anchor in the middle. They've been used in Long Island, and we have very similar geology to Long Island here. So I thought that we should try them out for a pilot project, and if they prove successful, then it could be an easy and affordable way for private property owners to put them on their property to help mitigate erosion. Again, it's not going to stop erosion, but it can help slow it down. So the idea is you screw them into the coastal bank, and then you plant dune grass within those kind of cubbies. You can also plant shrub material as well, like between the cliff stabilizers, and that naturally helps stabilize the bank. And once the roots have rooted, then you can take out those devices. So they are temporary structures. They're not meant to stay in there. It was very easy to permit. It took about a month, and it just needs a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. And then through that, Natural Heritage also has to put conditions on it. And they're relatively cheap. So for those two sites, it costs about $10,000.
I shared the slide with a friend of mine that's out in Sheep's Pond, and they're interested already because of what and you said there's a couple other people.
Yeah.
That are interested. So people are already looking for something because of what's happening, so.
Yeah, it's great because you don't need heavy machinery like on the beaches or anything. You just need an impact drill to screw that anchor in. Yeah, and I've spoken to a homeowner out in Pocomo who's interested in using it, and on Friday I'll be speaking to a resident in Nantucket who's interested in using it, who is adjacent to the site in Nantucket. Next slide. We had Holly come talk about the HDC and historic preservation in general, and she explained to us the FEMA zones and how historic structures are regulated within there. And then she also explained the Resilient Nantucket guidelines, and we asked how can the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee help the HDC with, thinking about coastal resiliency in mind when they make certain decisions. And so she gave input that it would be helpful for the committee to help with impervious services and materials. So the committee can start working on that. That's kind of also going to be wrapped into the Easy Street flood mitigation scope as well. Next slide. Okay, and then we had the Nantucket's Coastal Conference. So on the odd years, it's in Nantucket, and on the even years, it's on Martha's Vineyard. The planning team consisted of Natural Resources Department employees, so I was the head for that, Coastal Zone Management, and Woods Hole Sea Grant. It was free thanks to all of our sponsors listed on the slide. And it was held at the Great Harbor Yacht Club this year with 130 attendees. We kind of capped it at 130, but there was a wait list as well. So in 2 years, we will increase that capacity. The keynote was the new director of Office of Coastal Zone Management, and the sessions included local planning, coastal resiliency, neighborhood and property scale adaptation, and retreat panel. I heard it was a great conference. Unfortunately, I was very sick and could not attend. But, oh well. Next slide. Okay, so public outreach. The Coastal Resiliency posts are every Thursday on NRD's social media. Acclimate had created a couple short videos about CRAC members, which were hosted on the NRD Instagram and Acclimate. That is not happening anymore, so I think there's 3 or 4 members that have been interviewed on there. And then there's project updates within the town manager's newsletter as well. And I should put a plug in too. We put out 2 new newsletters for the Coastal Resilience and Sustainability group as well. So there's project updates in that, and then also a newsletter just went out, I think yesterday, the day before, about Climate Change Awareness Month on the island. Next slide. All right, and so the committee doesn't have any requests or recommendations for those 2 quarters. And just a reminder, the committee meets every second and fourth Tuesday at 10 a.m. via Zoom, and that's open to the public. So we urge the public to come. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Leah. Okay, moving along, we have two real estate items on this agenda that will then segue over to our county agenda later. I'll let Tracy present that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Tracy McDonald, Real Estate Manager. I'm going to apologize, I'm losing my voice. I'm here tonight to request, I'm going to paraphrase that big, long description that's on the
Yes,
agenda.
please.
I'm here to present the request for execution and acceptance of a release deed from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, otherwise known as Mass DOT, to the town of Nantucket for parcels set forth in the deed along Tom Nevers Road and shown on a layout plan 5004-L. Mike Burns, the transportation planner, has been working on developing plans for the Tom Nevers bike path and consulted with me last year regarding the ownership of Tom Nevers Road, which was laid out as a public road by the Mass DOT on behalf of the town in 1956 and had a subsequent order of taking. However, the research revealed that the town owned a portion of the road and the Mass DOT owned shoulder portions in a separate certificate of title. Town Council Vicky Marsh contacted Mass DOT, who agreed it was not their intention to own the parcels, and they agreed to convey the parcels to the town via the release deed of all their right, title, and interest in the parcels. I'm requesting the Select Board execute the acceptance of the release deed from Mass DOT, and then subsequently I'm requesting the Select Board approve and execute a deed for conveyance to the town of Nantucket, to the county of Nantucket, of the ownership by the town of the full 60-foot wide road layout identified in the Land Court Plan 5004-L. The deed in your packet has been prepared by Town Council and streamlines ownership of the layout that is consistent with other town and county roadways. The requests also have the authority of positive vote from Article 93 of the 2025 annual town meeting.
Thank you. And Vicky Marsh is on if anybody has any questions.
Can I just ask that when you
Yes.
make your motions, you do number one and then number two?
Yes.
Separate, thanks.
Want me to do number one? I'll move to accept number one, which is
The deed from
as
Mass
deed-
DOT.
accept the deed as from the state as laid out here,
Referencing.
I will second that.
Thank you, Malcolm.
referencing everything here.
All those in favor by roll call, Tom Dixon.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb.
Aye.
John Hill, aye. That carries unanimously. And then may we move to a motion on number two for the execution and conveyance?
Yeah, all right, so I'll move to accept and convey as it's written here, please.
Is there a
Second.
Okay, made and seconded by roll call. Matt Fee.
Aye.
Tom Dixon.
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb. John Hill, aye. That carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll stay tuned for county. Town managers report.
So we have been undertaking a municipal parking lot assessment. This is the condition of the lots and a review of what potential improvements there could be, including parking spaces, drainage, can we expand, can we add features, things like that. Drainage is kind of a big deal. So our project manager, Kevin Manuel, is on to, I think, take us through, Kevin, and our consultants from McClure Engineering, I think, are on too, as well as Deputy Town Manager Greg Tibman. Kevin?
Yep. Thank you, Libby. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kevin Manuel, Town's Project Manager. And I wanted to provide a brief update to the board on this ongoing project that we've undertaken this year. The project itself concerns the survey and assessment and then the development of recommendations for improvements and upgrades to 4 of the town's public parking lots. Those lots in question are 2FG, 131 Pleasant, 37 Washington Street, and then Jetties Beach, both the upper and the lower lots. I know over the past several weeks, there's been some questions raised about parking and the increased seasonal demand. So hopefully tonight, with the information I share about what we've been able to accomplish so far, and then outlining our next steps, will help address some of those parking demand issues. I should note first that the scope of this project does not include increasing the size of any of these lots. Rather, we're tasked with maximizing their capacity within their current footprints, seeking ways to optimize how they function, and in turn, providing more value to the community. So you may recall that this past spring, I updated the board on the reopening of the 2FG lot after we had closed it for the winter. And at that time, I noted that our team was working with DPW to close out phase one of this project. That phase focused on surveying existing conditions, including the layout, stormwater management issues, and design challenges, before we move forward with the recommendation and eventual implementation of some short-term improvements at two of the lots under review, 2FG and Jetties Beach, ahead of the summer season start. So based on the survey work that we did and some of the recommendations from our design engineering partner, at those two lots, we moved forward with some operational improvements. They included the reconfiguration of the parking lot layout at Jetties Beach, and we were able to actually gain 40 additional parking spaces with that change. We installed additional concrete barriers at 2FG to better delineate and define lanes, improving access for NERDA shuttles and just general traffic entering and exiting the lot. We relocated some ADA parking spaces at Jetties Beach away from a flood-prone area to improve accessibility and stormwater management access. We cleaned and regraded the lots, pushing back encroaching sand at Jetties and improving the overall maintenance and cleanliness of both of them. We worked with NERDA to relocate the shuttle service route at Jetties Beach from the lower lot to the upper lot, which helped reduce congestion and improved access overall. And DPW moved forward with installing several new bike racks at Jetties Beach to encourage cycling. And they also added new boardwalk leading from both the upper and lower lots to the concession area and beach entrance. Overall, the feedback we received on those changes has been positive, but more importantly, they did represent a big step toward our ultimate goal of maximizing lot capacity within the existing dimensions of these lots. So that's what we've done over the past couple of months, but where are we going from here? Well, our next steps include the fact that our team is now shifting its focus to longer term recommendations, and we aim to refine those over the next 2 to 3 months, and we'll be ready for your review and consideration before the end of this calendar year. Included in your agenda package this evening with my update are two very preliminary design concepts for Jetties Beach and 2FG. And while these are still early, these concepts illustrate the direction we're heading and served as the foundation for the short-term improvements that I just mentioned that we implemented this year. Preliminary discussion and review has already taken place on 37 Washington Street and 131 Pleasant, but we will re-engage on those fronts once some outstanding factors have been resolved and we're given the green light to move ahead. In addition to the reconfigured layouts, our recommendations are also going to include ways in which we can address traffic calming, implement pedestrian accommodations, address environmental considerations, and improve overall signage and lighting. Before the end of this year, we plan to present comprehensive recommendations for 2 of the 4 lots under the scope of this project, and the remaining designs will continue to be evolved and as conditions warrant, and we hope to finalize them within the beginning of the new year and present to you for your review and consideration. These recommendations over the next couple of months will continue to undergo interdepartmental reviews and technical vetting, and we hope to follow that by a formal community engagement process to ensure broad participation and address any resident and community concerns that will need to be raised. So at this stage, as I said, this was meant to be a brief update. I'm not asking for any formal approvals, but instead I'm asking and welcoming any questions, concerns, comments, suggestions that the board might have. I'll take note of those, bring those back to our project team, and they'll help inform our development plans moving forward as we finalize and refine them.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Number one, Washington Street parking lot will coastal resiliency, sea level rise, will those issues, I know we've talked about a couple of those parking lots running a dual purpose and being able to clear water from that area. Will that be considered in this work?
Yes, our team has met actually with Leah and Jeff from NRD to talk about those issues, but also coordinate any activity that we undertake with 37 Washington with any activity they're undertaking with their projects right now into coastal resiliency.
Right. All right, good. That's because I'd hate to spend the money twice. And the other thing is I do get a little worried, just my own feeling is I worry about putting too much money out here and turning this into a whole 15 acres of parking lots when we have so many other uses. We need a town, we need to get a town building and consolidated and get it out here at some point. So I don't want to invest too much money and then, have the psychology of previous investment where we don't want to, change something because we've done it. I'm a little hesitant if it's like the minor things that we've just done. I think that's great, but I get a little worried if we're making sort of longer-term investments just in general. And, so that's my two quick ones.
Can I add to that a little bit? And I think that of the areas that we've looked at in the past, we extensively looked at putting a garage downtown and have, moved away from that idea in Harper Place. But if we were to consider taking up less footprint with parking in any spot, I would think it would be here, especially if we're going to consider building more offices here and more housing here. We're already seeing the spaces are full on Waite Drive, and part of the permit for Tacoma Green includes 32 dedicated parking spaces on Waite Drive, and we have the pressures of, auto-dependent services that are provided on the island and commercial vehicles that need somewhere to go to help mitigate the congestion of people driving around trying to figure out where to park. So I know that that would be a major undertaking. It might be something we want to talk about in our strategic planning, but I think that that's something we should consider because land is so valuable. And if there was a way to do something vertical that was hidden, even if it was 2 stories, maybe it goes down a little bit. I don't know what the cost would be, but something to think about.
You're going to be shocked, Don, but I somewhat agree with you. But we have to value parking. Free parking isn't free. I'm a Shoup dog. I'm a Donald Shoup is a UCLA professor who's written the book about this, and it is, if we value parking properly, then I think things like a parking garage and some of the mayhem that we're facing right now will begin to get better. But if we continue to provide it free downtown and charge people to park out here, it's not going to do much. So we need a parking commission, and we need to, put policies in place and put our head around it if we're going to do it. And it's, we are an urban environment from, and we should be doing an urban grid from North Liberty Street out to the airport. And people don't like to hear that because they like to think it's, that it isn't, but, we'll talk about all that when we get to it. And just parking is one minor part of it. I hate to see more money and time spent on parking and allowing parking on sidewalks and everywhere else than we do on humans and, walking and safety. So I think that, we've got to get our priorities straight on some of this. So, thank you.
So I think we need to think about some of the bigger picture things in this location particularly. And while 37's being looked at, we need to consider what's happening with 39 in conjunction. So those are my preliminary thoughts, feedback. Anybody else? But Jetties looks great as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And 40 more spaces. Usually when you bring things up to code, you lose parking spaces. They become much larger, and you're like, oh, why did I even do that? But to come up with 40 new ones is great, and make it safer and more accessible is all really good.
I guess we're done with that.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and everybody else involved in that project. Much appreciated. The monthly town management report. So as you know, we're trying to provide you a different format, a more interesting format for the monthly report. Just a little bit of an overview here. The completion of the summer season, we think it went pretty smoothly. We didn't identify any real crazy issues that you all don't already know about. We did note a noticeable increase in unauthorized use of town and other property, which we are going to try to get a handle on. I've mentioned this a couple of months ago with a kind of a street stuff policy that we're going to be working on over the winter. The other issue, it's not really new or overly unusual, but we got a lot of comments about e-bikes and scooters and speeding and things like that. And there are a few things that we are working on for the board's review. In that area, it's difficult because towns aren't really authorized in Massachusetts to adopt their own regulations. We did adopt a bylaw change at town meeting, which might make it a little bit easier, but that has not yet passed. Staffing remains strong despite, of course, ongoing housing and cost of living challenges. We are currently focusing on fiscal 27 budgets, the 2026 town meeting warrant, collective bargaining, and getting the October retreat for your annual strategic plan review set up and prepared for. And we're preparing for our annual employee appreciation event, which will take place in November, and we are going to try out the Nantucket Inn this year. We have a number of major projects and initiatives. These are, I'm going to say, probably the most major. The Surfside Area Roads Improvement Project, of course, you all know about that one. That is underway. Capital Program Committee reviews have begun for fiscal 27 projects. The third sewer force main will get completed over the winter into next spring. There's going to be a lot of final paving along the route of that sewer force main. We have a bid out. Actually, it is back in and it's under evaluation for public restroom improvements and renovations. And there's a few things we might be bringing back to you on that for your review and evaluation and some recommendations. We're looking at some upgrades at various town buildings, specifically 16 Broad and 20 South Water, the old police station. We are in desperate need of some interior improvements in both of those buildings because some time ago, I think there was a thought that maybe we wouldn't be in them much longer, but we are clearly going to be in them for a while. And there are some code issues that really need to get addressed. I think you all know this because we've talked about it pretty often. The 10-year capital improvement plan and the coastal resiliency plan funding, since that's the biggest plan out there that has the most projects in it and the most costly. It's a concern, the so-called collision projects and how to fund everything and prioritize them. So we're very often looking at that and revisiting the Our Island Home and DPW facility projects. Lots of discussion underway there.
Libby, can I just go back real quick to 16 Broad?
Yep.
We did have an old, I don't know, there was an old plan, not old plan, there was a plan drawn connecting the buildings, and it was pretty grandiose. It was, sort of making a whole big building in the front, et cetera. But was there any, we should look, is there any part of that, any connection or any way to do it for less money and do just part of that plan and gain space? Like, I just don't remember it completely off the top of my head.
We can bring that back maybe when we're going to come in at some point about some municipal office space update. But that plan, Greg, I can hear Greg making noises in my head about this. We extensively looked at that. We had several options. There was a campus that was going to be potentially planned for. Other departments would come in town rather than going out of town. And at that time, I think the cost was well under 10 million. We would be well over that number at this point. Is there a way to make it cheaper? I doubt it. Maybe there might be features, but we're talking just interior improvements, no actual building expansion. If we were talking about actual building expansion, we're talking big money.
Oh, we are, but I'm also saying, what are we talking for a building out here? What was it, 50 or 80 or some huge number?
Several years ago, it was that.
Yeah, and so if that's going to be 80 to 100, all of a sudden, 20 million down there to get 20 or 30 years, not all of it, but get part of it to get through the collision might start to make more sense. It may not. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you. Personnel and staffing, we have hired a committee operations coordinator finally, and that person will start sometime in October. We have a very strong professional development and training program that HR has developed. We're going to be doing a professional development week for town staff in November, and there's a lot of other development and training concurrent with that. CDL credentialing. We have a really nice wellness program that HR launched in the spring. It's brought back for the fall. And I mentioned the development week in November and the employee appreciation event. We're working on a cabinet retreat as well. Just kind of a challenges and risks category here. Budget pressures and long-term funding constraints obviously are on our minds all the time. And policy and regulatory challenges are with us and on the horizon. There's a lot of regulatory issues out there that are going to require more staff, more attention, more focus, more money probably. We do have some staffing shortages in critical areas. Employee housing is a constant task, activity, goal, initiative. And you heard about this a couple weeks ago when we brought you our town employee capital program, capital project request. Emergency preparedness for seasonal and weather events. I think we're pretty prepared, but you never know. And I think we've been dodging bullets right and left with hurricanes and other weather-related events pretty well. Knock on wood, we won't have anything terrible. But at some point we will, so we need to be prepared for it. And balancing service delivery with long-term sustainability and resilience. That's obviously just a key feature to everything that we do. Looking ahead in the nearish future, we have the strategic plan alignment and annual town meeting warrant prep. And by strategic plan alignment, I mean with budget goals and capital projects and things of that nature. Collective bargaining negotiations will be beginning very shortly. The cabinet retreat I mentioned, deadlines and hearings for the fiscal 27 budget prep. PFAS update, we are planning an update for you. I can't quite remember when, but I think November. We haven't had one in a little while, and there's a lot of stuff to update you on. And at the time of the development of this presentation, special town meeting was somewhat of a question. It looks like more of a definitive now. And just so the public maybe knows, there has been at least one citizen warrant article which calls for a special town meeting submitted late today. And we are working on getting it to planning, and well, of course the signatures have to be certified, but getting it to planning so they can immediately start scheduling whatever the required hearings are. And we haven't said it yet, but most likely there will be a select board meeting next week to adopt the warrant and get everything in place that needs to be in place in order to have the special town meeting. And I think we are continuing at this exact moment, not written in stone totally, looking at the date of Tuesday, November 4th, which is the date we talked about in July when we were talking about this. And I am happy to answer any questions.
On that special town meeting, if we have the meeting soon enough, will any other articles that come in, will they all be able to be in the warrant? One of my concerns is that this is gonna probably precipitate one or another. I know Dave Iverson is working on, and Tom can probably talk better about it than I can, but he's been working on an article that is different than this one that would potentially be something he hopes the planning board and some of the stakeholders all agree on, so that we don't get 3 more stakeholder articles. But I want to make sure that all of them get the time they need and get noticed properly and get in there. So that and if it's if it's sort of a cluster like it was last time, then we will end up, probably with the same result as last time. And I think a lot of people have put a lot of time and effort, and you all are going to put a lot of time and effort into pulling this off in a short period of time. So how do we try to give it the best chances possible of succeeding?
I think that we are going to be having a lot of discussions internally over the next several days to figure out how to get a warrant with motions out to the voters before special town meeting. Right now, it's pretty tight, and we might have to make some workarounds here and there to accelerate the process, but trying to make sure the voters have the information they need for before town meeting, not at town meeting. And hopefully we will not have extra articles that are submitted, which will detract from the whole purpose of this and cause possible impacts that will not make it possible to have a document with motions issued ahead of town meeting. So hopefully people will be mindful of that. And if the planning board, hopefully, I really do not want to speak for them, but if they are able to adopt an article next week, that would be ideal, so that the board could potentially adopt the warrant sometime next week with their article in it and any other articles that come in between now and then that have the appropriate signatures. And again, hopefully this is a targeted event with the same topic, not multiple unrelated topics. But I hear your point very clearly, that it is best for the voters to have the information in advance, not at the town meeting presented to them.
Go ahead, Tom.
Libby, this is obviously a very tight time frame, and I just wanted to quickly say that to the public that e-voting or the clickers and all that stuff may or may not be able to be confirmed, right, with this, because the companies who rent them, you need to book them far in advance, and it's the Nantucket factor, and getting, you know, all there's so much stuff. I've seen your internal internal notes that you forward the board to us, and how this all goes about, and there are 40 plus moving parts to it. So I just wanted to say to anybody listening that it's a lot to put together in a short period of time. And I know that you and the moderator, et cetera, et al. Are going to do your best to try and make it like any other town meeting, but it's really short. And I would just briefly say off the back of Matt's comments, Dave is pretty close on his article. It's pretty fleshed out. I'm not sure it's final, but I think his intention is to bring it to his board next week for discussion on Monday, and hopefully that will be able to be adopted. But I don't want to speak for him either, but he's been hard at work at it, meeting with a lot of stakeholders, et cetera.
So we will probably think about calling a meeting after Rosh Hashanah next week. So if the planning board's meeting on Monday, that we wouldn't be having one until Thursday or Friday to adopt the warrant, would be the timing. And we do have, I mean, if we're literally voting on 1 or 2 or 3 articles, having the e-voting is expensive, but I know that people have gotten used to the anonymity and so forth. We do have the option of using paper ballots. Yes, they would have to be counted, but we can do it that way, just so people understand that there is another mechanism that can be quite accurate. So it's a little old school, but that may be the nature of this kind of a town meeting.
I like everyone raising their hands. If I don't like the anonymity as much. If you have a conviction, put your hand up. So, but I will go.
Yeah, but those
if
can
people
be
won't do that,
miscounted more easily
I know my
too.
employees wouldn't go for that. They don't like that. But I'm old and they're not. So
I would
so I
anticipate
understand.
this is contentious enough
Oh,
that it all needs to be down to like the T and not people walking around clicking.
Well,
Malcolm?
and I'm sorry.
Sorry, Malcolm put his hand up.
Well, I'm older than Matt, and I like the electronic voting. I'm sorry. I just think this is all unnecessary. I mean, I'm very upset about this. We should, anyway, I'm said enough.
We'll do the best we can with that on this.
And for those that are going to submit, what will they? When do they submit? Like, what's the time frame? I mean, I'm hoping they don't, but
If the board adopts the warrant, opens and closes it, let's pretend next Friday, potentially articles could be submitted up till probably, we need the signatures certified, so Wednesday.
Yeah, so, and then we would.
I mean, I'm just
accept-
guessing on that, but I mean, again, like Tom said, I think we're urging the public to please don't submit citizen warrant articles that are unrelated to the topic of this, short-term rentals, because that is going to detract from this yet again. It's intended to be a focused,
Yeah, or don't submit another short-term rental article.
right.
So we have 4 of them. I mean,
Right.
that's, try to go to the planning board meeting and have your input there, and you can make your adjustments there if you can. I mean, that's sort of what I would hope, but, and come up with some unified article, but.
Tom?
I think the 3 that we know about, the general outlines of them, I think the good news, I put that in quotes, is they're all, if you've been following this and you're not off the street and learning about short-term rentals for the first time, is obviously really complicated and all that stuff. But the general parameters of these 3 articles are fairly easy to understand, and they cover pretty much the range of, as you said, the 14 different sides or whatever a couple of weeks ago. So I'm hopeful that if the community town meeting will have a choice between everything from full codification to something a little more restrictive to something in the middle. So at least that's potential good news. And I think it would be really, really unfortunate if it were multiple articles full of general bylaw stuff and changing 132 and 338, like that just doesn't, or 123, excuse me, that's just not, it's going to detract from what the citizen, I think, in her article is trying to do, and also from the town meeting process.
John Carl,
Hey, are you guys taking public comment on this?
you can comment or ask a question.
Yeah, I'm John Carl McGrady with the Nantucket Current, for those wondering. I wanted to ask if you can share who submitted the article that is going to force this special town meeting.
I believe the sponsor is Brian Borgeson.
Correct. And of course, it has to be certified still.
Yes, the signatures have to be certified. It came in at like 3 minutes till 4. Okay. Moving on, are there any committee reports before we close select board?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would just quickly say that we had CPC yesterday, and we had 20 applications, which is more than we've had recently, for a total of, I believe, just under $9 million. Might be $8 million, just under $8 million, I forget which, and a wide range. There was only one affordable housing, but multiple in historic preservation and multiple in open space and recreation. So we were pleased with the turnout for applications.
Thank you. Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn the select board
So
meeting?
moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Matt Fee,
Aye.
Malcolm McNabb,
Yes.
Tom Dixon,
Aye.
Don Hill, aye. We are adjourned for select board, and now I will pass it to Tom as the chair of county.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will call to order the County Commissioners meeting for September 17th, 2025 at 6:48 PM. Thank you, Erica. Announcements are that the County Commission meeting is being audio and video recorded. And next up is public comment for items for otherwise not on the agenda for County Commissioners. Seeing none, I'll close that item and go on to new business. There is no new business. Number 5, approval of minutes and warrants. Minutes for August 20th.
Motion to approve 1 and 2.
Second.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Matt. All those in favor by roll call. Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimously. And next up, we have the bookend to the other part of what we had in select board. And I'm going to turn it over to Tracy McDonald, the real estate manager for the town, to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you're correct. This is the acceptance of the deed that the Select Board previously conveyed to the county for the full 60-foot wide road layout for Tom Nevers Road that's shown on Land Court Plan 5004-L. And it streamlines the ownership of the layout consistent with our other roadways in the town and the county. So I'm requesting for you to accept the deed as the county commissioners.
Thank you, Tracy. We also have Town Council Vicky Marsh online, if there are any questions from the commissioners. Any questions or a
I'll
motion?
move to accept the deed.
For number one,
Second.
Matt?
Yes, number one.
Great.
Second.
Moved by Matt, second by Malcolm. All those in favor by roll call. Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That
I'm
passes
so
unanimously.
glad
and this
that this
makes-
bike path is moving forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this makes, by doing this, this makes the process a lot easier going forward for us,
It
correct?
streamlines we hold all of our other roads in county, so it streamlines that. It also allows Mike to move forward with the design plans with the right references and correct references and all that.
Can he fit all of it into the layout now that the layout is technically larger, or was this always considered?
This was always considered, the layout was the layout. It
Okay.
was 60 feet, it just had a combination of
owners.
ownership.
Okay.
Tracy?
I think that's it for that one, right?
Oh, that's right. There's one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't know if you were going to announce it. Okay.
Yes,
So,
Sheep's Pond Road.
So, okay. All right, so thank you. I am presenting to the county commissioners this evening the request for votes to assess the betterments against the parcels of land owned by Sheep Pond Road residents who will be benefiting from the construction of the roadway easement project for Sheep Pond Road, as shown on the easement plan in your packet. I don't know, Erica, if you could put up that plan. The betterments reflect the total cost of the total estimated cost of the roadway pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 80. I'm asking the county commissioners to approve and execute the betterment assessment statement for the estimated betterments to be assessed for each of the parcels of land identified in the Schedule A on the statement. I have Town Council Vicky Marsh here tonight online. Finance Director Brian Turbot is also in the audience, and we work together on this aspect of the project, gathering the information to calculate the estimated figure. I'd like to, at this time, turn it over to Town Council Vicky Marsh to give a summary again of the betterment process, and then we can take questions of how we calculated the figure and any other questions the commissioners might have. And thereafter, I can read the two specific votes that we need to take, or Dawn can, anybody can read them. And then we're going to have a little brief update about the remaining components of the project.
Thank you, Tracy. Good evening, Vicky.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. It's nice to see you.
You too.
So I'm here to give you an update as to the, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
okay, I'm sorry.
Maybe a little
So I'm
delay.
here to just refresh your memories a bit on, there's a delay? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
We can hear you fine.
So I'm here to just refresh your memories a bit on the, okay. I'm here to refresh your memories on the betterment process and how we got here for the Sheep Pond Road project that has been a long time coming and getting it to finally face some construction. The betterment assessments are allowed to be made pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 80, for a public improvement project that is going to benefit a particular group of properties that will receive benefits that are not customary to the general public. And so it is due to the construction of the easement, that roadway easement, the Sheep Pond Road residents will be able to maintain legal access to their properties via this roadway easement that's going to be constructed. Therefore, they're going to be receiving a benefit for access over this roadway easement that the general public does not need and will not have access to. We've compiled a number of the costs for this project, the survey costs, legal, the construction costs, and then there are always the land court filings and recording costs that we're going to be facing in order to be able to complete the project. So we've been able to calculate that amount as an estimated amount of $295,000. That amount, or whatever lesser amount are the actual costs, would then be assessed proportionately to the residents who will be receiving the benefits of the project. And they will not be assessed the actual betterments until the project has been completed. So once the project's completed, we will accumulate all of the actual costs that the project has accumulated, and then we will have an order of betterment assessments that the county commissioners will then assess, and that will be the actual final amount that will be divided amongst the different property owners. So this evening, we have the first step, which is the betterment assessment statement. We're asking that you make a determination that there are a group of property owners that will receive benefit from these easements, and that and they will then be assessed a proportion of betterment assessment upon the completion of the project. And that amount is the $295,000. And then there's also going to be a vote for the actual betterment assessment statement itself. And that contains the schedule of the properties as well as a copy of the easement plan showing the actual area that's going to be constructed, the roadway easement. After the project is completed, there is an order of betterment assessment that must be filed within 6 months after the completion of the project. And you will be asked to vote and make a determination and assess the betterments based upon the actual costs that have been accumulated. And then that document then gets recorded with the Registry of Deeds, and then the county, within a reasonable time after making these assessments and executing the order of betterment assessment, will then certify the amounts to the assessors with the list of the assessments. And the assessors will then basically take over from there by committing the assessments to the tax collector, who will then start making the assessments against the properties and their real estate taxes. So that's basically the process that's going to need to be completed once the project is actually constructed. Do you have any questions about the process?
Thank you, Vicki, for that summary. Tracy, is there anything you want to add, or any commissioners' questions?
No, we can take
Thank you.
questions.
Yeah, so I have a question. Each homeowner here has a choice of paying this immediately, paying it over 20 years. Do they have an opportunity to put this on a lien if they don't want to pay? What are their options?
Vicki? Would you like?
So once the assessments are made, there is a lien that's going to be attached to their property, and that then gets paid off. As you said, they have a choice. They can either pay it off over a term of 20 years, if they so choose, with interest, or they can pay it in a lump sum. And so that is totally up to them. And then if they don't pay it, when they go to sell their property, there's going to be a lien attached that's going to have to be paid off.
So now you've got me where I wanted to be. Let's just pretend that one of these persons has a property that's going to fall into the water in the next few years, and they don't pay us at all. What happens?
Well, so they still own the property. I mean, it's their home that has fallen into the ocean. But they still do have title to this property. So they do have, an obligation to pay the lien, which is still going to be taxed on until they either sell the property or, we can always foreclose on it and then go after them for the betterment amount that's due. But that would be also with, if there are remaining taxes. They also may have mortgages. I mean, so there's a lot that goes on with this, other than just, the lien that the town may have on the betterment.
No, and I understand, but I think that I'm just making sure that we're thinking about the situation where we could potentially not be paid. And, and I know that we'd be charging interest and we could take them to court and do X, Y, and Z, but, I don't want to be, in this case, I'm not all that concerned, but we've got other places around, because I think we've been working with the homeowners here, and the homeowners here are, I have no concern at all, but I'm asking it more from a general policy situation. Is there a way to ensure that the town isn't left holding the bag, especially if it's an expensive and, a really expensive thing that we are bettering? And so, it's not going to be answered tonight, I'm sure, Vicky, but, it's something to think about because of, sort of this, it's sort of, how do I say it? I think the realities of sea level rise are starting to hit people, and I think, betterments weren't really thought of with sea level rise in mind, and with people just walking away from properties in mind. So
Yes.
I want us to be proactive in thinking about it. Thank you.
Vicky?
If Mr. Chair?
Please.
So if I could respond to Matt, I totally agree with you that we need to make sure that, the documents reflect exactly the agreements. We do have agreements with them, the property owners, that they agree to pay these betterments, because the county has undertaken a project that they have generally not done before, and we have responded to their requests and their needs to be able to provide them the access that they've wanted. So we would hope that certainly they will cooperate with the payments for this project going forward. And like I said, the documentation reflects their obligation to participate in the payments. They also are responsible, just so I may add, that the easement itself, the easement agreement, once the road is constructed, there's an easement agreement in place between NCF and the residents, who are going to be forming a homeowners association to maintain that easement area. So they have agreed to also undertake the costs to do that as well. And they've documented and created this homeowners association for that purpose, as well as any other costs that they may have. So hopefully that will tie into some of the concerns with respect to the maintenance of this roadway easement.
I think you kind of missed my point. My point isn't about this. My point is about in the future, when we have projects that are millions of dollars, that there's some amount of betterment. I'm not worried about this group is at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the future, is there a way to fashion this so the town isn't left holding the bag? But regardless of that, I think I'm ready to vote on this.
Tracy?
Okay, thank you. Dawn, if you're willing
So-
to, all right, do you want to read it, or would you like?
I'm happy to read it.
Dawn?
Okay.
On number 1, we, the Nantucket. Yes, A. We, the Nantucket County Commissioners, determine and vote that betterments for the construction and improvements for the roadway easement for the Sheep Pond Road project shall be assessed pursuant to GL C80 upon the property shown on a plan entitled Roadway Easement Exhibit Plan Sheep Pond Road in Nantucket, Massachusetts, dated May 9th, 2025, which property shall receive benefits other than the general benefits to the community for the improvements for the above referenced roadway easement for Sheep Pond Road. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Dawn, second by Matt. All those in favor by roll call. Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimously. And then is there a
Then
motion
on
for number 2?
B,
B.
We, the Nantucket County Commissioners, vote to approve and execute the Betterment Assessment Statement for the assessment of betterments estimated to be $295,000 on the parcels of land shown on a plan entitled Roadway Exhibit Plan Sheep Pond Road in Nantucket, Massachusetts, dated May 9th, 2025, and identified on Schedule A, copies of which are attached to said statement for the construction and improvements shown as proposed 30-foot wide roadway easement, 57,862 plus or minus square feet on said plan, and to authorize town council to record said betterment assessment statement with the Nantucket Registry of Deeds and the Nantucket Registry District of the Land Court.
Second?
Moved by Dawn, second by Matt. All those in favor by roll call. Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So the next part I was going to talk about was the status of the permanent easement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky.
Vicky Marsh has actually been collecting the signatures to hold the easement in escrow. So that's moving along. But they have negotiated and agreed on the permanent easement between NCF and the homeowners. And so that's pretty much almost final. And I don't know if I don't see Jeff on, is Jeff online? Okay. So Jeff, if you
I'm
could
here.
update the commissioners on the status of the permitting?
Hi, Jeff. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Just a quick update. So we're in our process. Our only permit required here is a permit from Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. We've done all of the field work necessary to do the botanical surveys. Our plants came into bloom in September, so it's really good timing on our behalf. The last requirement that we have to provide to them is that finished and signed easement. It doesn't appear right now that there's going to be any mitigation required. I believe we can just go with an avoidance path, and that seems to be acceptable to them. So I think once we finished off that last piece of paperwork, we should be clear of that permitting hurdle and can break ground shortly thereafter.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you. Any comments, commissioners, on that?
I think it's amazing that we're at this point. I know it took a little bit longer and, and a lot more questions than people wanted, but I think in regards to my experience over the years and the speed of government, this actually went relatively smoothly and relatively quickly. We didn't forget about it for 20 years, and so I thank everybody for getting this done. But it also, I think it also shows to, how complicated some of these issues are going to be. And it shows how much work there is for, a handful of homeowners on one small road. Like what we're going to be dealing with island-wide is incredible. And so, we are learning. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
No? Okay. So Drew Patnode is on, and he's going to discuss the roadway construction and the process for that and the timeline.
Evening, Drew. Please go ahead.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, I was actually going to give a quick overview of the plan, the easement width, the roadway and all that, but I know that's kind of already been said tonight, so I'll spare you and be very brief. Ultimately, once the easements are finalized and permits have been approved, we will either publicly bid the work or, in the interest of time, and obviously this is a time-sensitive issue, we may be able to utilize one of our existing contracts to engage, the contractor to actually perform the work. Ultimately, we're hopeful once all the paperwork's finalized and in place, we can get the roadway constructed within approximately 6 weeks, obviously pending, people's schedules and of course the weather as we head into the fall and early winter here. And then lastly, of course, the final, actual cost of the constructed improvements will be documented and included in the final assessments.
Sounds good. Thank you, Drew.
Okay, and then I'm just going to wrap it up with some of the real estate matters that we're working on. So as the commissioners are aware, we have a temporary easement in place that expires on September 24th. It became obvious that we weren't going to meet that deadline. So I reached out to the homeowners on Head of Plains who granted the easement, and I've been able to secure an extension to December 31st. That's currently in the process of being executed. So I'm happy to report that we will have an extension. And then, following the completion and the compliance of the roadway, we have some other obligations we have to meet. We have to work to convey the Alter Rock property to the Nantucket Conservation Foundation in exchange for the recording of the permanent easement. And we also agreed to take the paper road parcels and convey those over to NCF. So, and other than that, if the commissioners have any questions, that's really the update.
Thank you, Tracy, and I appreciate the really good agenda item summary for this. I know it's a lot to get in there. There's, as Matt said before, a lot of moving parts to this. And thank you to Drew and Jeff as well. I think that concludes that item. Commissioners' reports, comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn county?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Dawn, second by, give it to Malcolm. All those in favor by roll call, Dawn?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See, like when I see